You know those nights when sleep feels like a fantasy and parenting starts to feel like survival? Shani Avidar's been there ×3. And in this episode, she unpacks the truth about baby sleep, her dramatic shift from banking to coaching, and how overwhelmed parents can finally breathe and sleep again. Parenting is the most amazing experience in the world, but my God, it's tiring, especially in those early days.
We didn't know how to parent, and we were expected to leave the hospital, go home, and know what to do. And in reality, no one knows what to do. Life is too short to be unhappy, so just do whatever you feel is good for you. And I did. I'm lucky to have a supporting husband, but it's been great since then. You need to prioritize yourself, because if you don't, you cannot take care of anyone else. I always say, give the mom the gift of sleep. So every baby shower, just give her a gift card to sleep coaching instead of a onesie. Parenting doesn't come with a guide. And I tell my clients, it's okay to have a plan, but it's okay to change your plan. Because if something happens, we move forward, we find another solution.
It's okay. You don't need to feel like you're a bad parent if you're regretting having a baby right now because you're not sleeping. That's natural.
Why your child not sleeping does not make you a bad parent.
Are you a parent struggling with sleepless nights and exhausted days? Shani Avidar shares today how parents can create healthy sleep habits without the stress. Plus, why she left a corporate career to follow her passion. Shani is a certified pediatric sleep coach, a lactation consultant, and founder of My Little Dreamer, where she helps exhausted parents navigate the challenges of infant and toddler sleep. Her journey into sleep coaching wasn't just professional, it was also personal. After struggling with sleep deprivation while raising her 3 children back to back, she dove deep into research and training, discovering the baby-led sleep approach, which transformed her parenting and ultimately led to a career shift. Before launching My Little Dreamer, Shani spent nearly 2 decades in high-level roles in the financial sector, including regulatory compliance and data governance. And now she applies her analytical problem-solving skills to a much different challenge, helping families get the sleep they desperately need. Shani, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you along.
Thanks for having me.
You'll have noticed that there's a lot of passion went into that bio from my behalf, because as I read the words, I know I've lived that life. My eldest, turns out, is now on the path for ADHD, which meant we didn't know it at the time, but a lot of the tips and tricks that we got told about how to get kids to sleep and how to help them sleep and all the rest of it were kind of irrelevant as he grew up and he was a little bit older. I remember advising one of my friends who was having a baby probably about a year after we'd had our first. And I just kind of said, Matt, however tired is the most tired you've ever felt in your life. Can you picture that in your head right now? And he said, yeah. I said, right. I want you to multiply that by 30 and then apply that to every single day for the next 6 months. Because that's what it's like. I says, parenting is the most amazing experience in the world, but my God, it's tiring, especially in those early days. So that's my personal background on this. I've got 2 lovely boys. I love them to bits. And I'm in a much better place now than I was. But I'm looking forward to, 1, diving into the journey that you've been on to where you are now. And 2, sharing a bit of your advice so that perhaps we can get some other people started down that same path. So lovely to have you along.
Thank you. And I fully agree with you. I wish we all got more education during the prenatal stage. And from my experience, when I was pregnant with my first, I went to all the classes that the hospital had, and my husband and I were sitting there. We didn't have any experience, and we learned how to change diapers and CPR and all that, but no one talked to us about sleep. And we were working full time. And for me, the expectation was to finish maternity leave and come back to the office and perform as before. And we were exhausted. The baby arrived. We didn't know how to parent. And we were expected to leave the hospital, go home, and know what to do. And in reality, no one knows what to do. And it's the hardest job ever. And especially when you're sleep deprived, you're exhausted and you're expected to take care of a newborn. Um, so like you mentioned, I spent almost 20 years in the financial industry. And because I'm a type A personality, I'm a planner, I started researching sleep because I knew what I was up against and I just wanted to prepare. And I read about all the sleep training methods out there. And there was no way I would let my child quiet out in their crib or just, following a chart like the Ferber method. And I came across the baby led sleep approach that basically talks about the bond between parents and their children. And we learn how to follow schedule and set routines, but we also know that nutrition plays a big part of sleep and psychology has a big role. So the words that we use with our kids, even when they're a few days old, they matter. And the earliest you start with your child and teach them the skill of sleep, then it's easier. And that's how you don't experience the challenges that come later on, like the 9-month depression anxiety and other, teething difficulty. So basically, you learn what's the reason your child might be crying. You're better equipped to deal with that. So for me personally, I was literally pregnant for 3 years because I have three boys and they are 1 year apart each. And I wanted them to sleep, but I needed them to sleep. And thankfully, I learned and I got certified and I was starting my company parallel to banking where it was at the time. And I realized that, it's really comes down to lack of education. And I started talking to parents and educating them and growing my company until I realized there are so many parents out there that could use my services. And I left the corporate world and I just focused on my business. And I've been doing it for a few years now. And I'm happy to see results. I'm happy when parents come to me and they are so sleep deprived. And after a few days of working with me, they can get a good night's sleep or they decide to get pregnant again because they finally sleeping. And
Well,
I'm happy that
let's
I'm here
rewind
to help.
back to that banking career then. Like, first of all, I'm gonna call out the white elephant in the room. There aren't many women who manage to make it to the top of the banking industry. We know this, right? It's a heavily male-dominated
Right.
environment. So I imagine you worked incredibly hard to get there. Why did you choose compliance and risk management? What was it about compliance and risk that attracted you in the first place?
So I'm a CPA. And ever since I remember, I wanted to be a CFO. And I started my career at Ernst& Young, one of the big four accounting firms. And then I moved into the private sector. I worked in another accounting firm. And I remember once I became a controller at a property management company, I realized that this is so boring. And there is no way I would want to spend the rest of my career doing that. And I was drawn to law and I wanted something that kind of like combines law and accounting. And I didn't know what it was, but I met one of the CEOs of a big bank and he asked me, what do you think about compliance? And I said, I have no idea what that is, but, tell me about it. And he said, well, let's start by having you join the legal department and starting the compliance department in our bank. And I did that for a while in New York City. And then after 10 years, I decided to move to Miami because weather was so much better here. And I found a position in one of the largest risk and advisory firms, and I joined their team. And my clients were financial institutions all over the world. But I was traveling a lot. And I then decided to just find a position within a local bank. It's an international bank. And I ended up starting the compliance department there, and then the regulatory compliance, and then the data governance until I managed a team in Spain, Latin America, and the US when Spanish is not my first language. And I did get to the top. But once I became a mom, and I just realized, first of all, I wanted to spend more time with my kids. I never thought I would be a founder of a company. That's not something I ever envisioned for myself. But life takes you, and if you're open to it, then just take the risk. And one day, when after I founded my company, and I told my husband, "Listen, I think my passion is with the company that I own, and not so much with the corporate that I belong to." And he said, "Life is too short to be unhappy. So just do whatever you feel that is good for you." And I did. And I'm lucky to have, a supporting husband. But it's been great since then.
I think it's an incredibly powerful story, and one that I wish more people could experience for themselves, because I speak to people who are stuck, and I mean stuck in corporate roles, not because they're limited by their skill set or their ambition even, or their intelligence, but because they don't even realize that there's another world out there, and that starting your own company is something that happens to other people. It's something that happens to extremely gifted and talented people. And I'm not one of those people. I don't have that skill set. I couldn't do that. I could never run my own business, exactly as you've said. And yet I see it time and time again. When you're thrown into the fire and you decide to make that decision for whatever reason, we survive, we manage, we make it work, and we are successful. And before you know it, you've kind of transformed into a person that can't understand how we never knew this was possible in the first place. Because I'd be willing to bet for the first, that 20-year career that you were in finance, in banking, in compliance, it probably wasn't even a thought that crossed your mind that you'd ever start your own business, let alone be scared of it. Like, why would I?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good money, it's secure, it's got future, it's got potential, I've got a career. And then children change so much about us, right?
Yeah. And I think the pandemic kind of contributed to it. And at some point, everyone was sure we were going to work remote forever. And then it changed too. But I think people started thinking about prioritizing themselves, prioritizing their passions. And life is too short to just do something that you're not happy about or you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, first of all, you had 3 children back to back.
I know.
I can't, and I could never make that decision on purpose, or I'd be done. Like we got 2, and I always said I wanted 3 kids. So we had the first one, and I love him to bits, and he's now almost 8. We had the second one. We waited for COVID because we wanted to get married before we had him. So we got married, then we had him, and my wife and I just looked at each other. It was in fairness, it was a pretty traumatic birth. It was an emergency cesarean section. It was pretty touch and go at one point. We just looked at each other, and I just went, "Now we're done. That's it. I don't want to risk you by having another birth," because both births had some complications. The second one tipped me over the edge, and I just said, "You know what? I don't want to risk anything more. We don't need a third. We're quite happy as we are." And we had that, but we're almost a little bit. We plan to have them closer together. So 3 though, back to back. I can't imagine having a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a newborn at the same time. What was that like, Shani?
Yeah, and it was, I think because I had this skill set and my personality is very much, I'm a type A, I need a plan. I just know my schedule, but I also think, and when I speak to my clients, I also tell them, you need to prioritize yourself, because if you don't, you cannot take care of anyone else. So I was very strict on schedule. I was very strict with our routines. My husband travels 98% of the time. So it was me needing to make sure that the house was on schedules. And, my kids are still little. They are 3, 4, and 5. Even when we travel, and we just recently got back from Israel, and with jet lag, everything, they were sleeping amazing from day one that we got there. And when we got back, there was no jet lag or anything. So it's really up to you as parent to teach your child how to become a good sleeper. And if you do, then you take care of yourself, because for me, it was all about knowing how my day is going to look like. If I knew that I could work out in the morning at a certain time, that would make me happy, because if I don't work out, I don't have patience. So for me, that is a must. But I knew also when I was going to take a shower, when I was going to have lunch. It's just setting, expectations and creating routines and schedules.
Right, I'm gonna compare this to a SaaS business, right? When I speak to a SaaS business owner, there's two camps quite often. There's those that have had a great idea and build something to solve a problem, but don't really have the fundamental experience within that industry to make it work. And they have to bring in experts to help them. And it never, in my opinion, never quite is the same as somebody who's been on the other side of the desk and thought, do you know what? I need to create something that solves this problem for people like me. I know what the pain is. I'm going to go and fix it. And those businesses always seem to do really well. I've worked in one of those, so I know firsthand the difference that can make. And you've done the same thing, right? So you went through that challenging time, that sleep deprivation, and all the problems that went with that, and you've now built your own business to solve that problem for others. What does that feel like when you're helping other parents who you know exactly the emotions that they must be feeling, the tiredness, because it's hard to describe to somebody who's never been through it, right? Like you can never quite help them understand just how hard and tough that can be. What's it like being the person that helps them change that?
I think the word is satisfaction, because I know not only they get more sleep, but imagine when you're tired, how often you tend to fight with your spouse because you're tired. So I'm looking at it as like from a point of I'm kind of like contributing to the well-being of the entire family, because they get sleep. They don't fight as they would have if they didn't come to me. And it's just creating a happy family versus parents that are in a survival mode.
And do you find that a lot of your clients now are similar people to where you were? Is that something that you focus on, or is it? Am I off the mark there?
I think I have a mix. So I have moms that come to me and they're like, they have their corporate job, they are planners, they need to actually prepare for going back to the office, and I can definitely relate to that. And I have some moms that come to me and they are stay-at-home moms, but they have multiple kids. They need to make sure that they get sleep, that their children get the rest that they need. And so I work with all type of parents. And because all my services are virtual, I have parents from all over the world. And, even when I speak to parents and they ask me for recommendation, it always starts with a conversation, because everyone has a different lifestyle, different parenting style, different apartment versus house, if they live in the suburb, in the city. So it's just different for each one of us. And also every kid is different and unique. So when I talk to parents, I tell them, this is what I'm going to recommend, but you know your child the best. So if it works for you and your child, tell me, great. But if not, then we can find an alternative. And that's how I, make sure that we address every child.
So then, I know from my own personal experiences that there's a lot of advice and misinformation out there around infant sleep, and that will also vary geographically between countries and regions and cultures. What are some of the biggest, or even just one of the biggest myths that you'd like to debunk today? If somebody's watching along, that you come across all the time that's just not true?
So first of all, I think pediatricians and also social media create the expectation and illusion that your child should be sleeping through the night when they're 4 months. And in reality, most babies would sleep through the night around the 9 months mark. But that doesn't mean they would wake up every hour, every 30 minutes. It means that if they wake up every hour, once or twice a night, then that's normal. But when you see on social media that, oh, my child has been sleeping through the night since they are 4 months, then you start doubting yourself as a parent and you think that you're doing something wrong. And I really don't like that because that's not reality. And I wish the education was much better at the prenatal stage because then parents would have known what to expect, basically.
So I'm guessing you're a big fan of reaching people before they're desperate, right? Like getting to them to the point where we're planning on having a baby. But how often does that happen? Is it more often that they come to you when they're desperate, I guess?
I think, and like I always say, my ideal client would come to me when they're pregnant just to prepare. But in reality, it mainly happens around the 34 months mark because parents experience it. But I wish it would be the opposite because,
Mhm.
and I always say, give the mom the gift of sleep. So every baby shower, every birth, just give her a gift card to sleep coaching instead of a onesie because everyone can buy material stuff, but not everyone would either. Some parents don't even know that sleep coaching exists, and some are even ashamed to reach out and get help. And I, I am someone that if I don't know something, I go out and I look for it, or I do my research and I learn how to solve a problem. I don't just stay in a state that I'm not happy or cannot handle.
I think we're aligned there, but I think you raise a really, really great point, is that people do feel ashamed for having to ask for help. But when we do ask for help, there's also an expectation that somebody else will be able to tell us the answer. And actually,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, it's called sleep coaching for a reason, right? Because you've got the answer in here. You know your child, you know your environment. And it's the same with medical side of things as well. Quite often, a doctor can't give you the answer that you would love them to be able to give you. And that's a really tough thing to come to terms with, especially as a first-time parent, that actually somebody isn't going to come along and solve this problem for me, and we need to work this out ourselves and listen to all the information that's being given to us and choose what path's right for us. Is that sort of like, so you mentioned kind of the almost the shame from parents, but do you find that they are exhausted not just by the sleep deprivation, but by all the conflicting advice and mixture of support that's out there as well?
Yeah, I think also there is a lot of mixed opinions.
Mm.
Uh, Also, formula versus breastfeeding, there's a lot of pressure. And to add sleep deprivation to it, you're just overwhelmed and exhausted.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the personality to say, I don't want advice. Let me figure out what works for me and my family. And sometimes it's just backtracks you because you're overwhelmed, you're sleep deprived, and instead of reaching out for help, you're just staying in the state of mind that you're at or the situation that you're in. And it's just hard. And, you're a new parent, you don't know. It's just parenting doesn't come with a guide.
No, it absolutely doesn't. And I think as well, we discovered that both times we had tongue tie to deal with for our children, right? And that, again,
Yeah.
very controversial, especially here in the UK. Absolutely very controversial. Whilst some people are happy that it exists, and I don't understand how something scientifically proven can exist or not exist, it's almost seen as 95% of children don't need anything to support them with that. And we had successful tongue tie operation with our second, and the difference that it made with him as he grew up. First one, we had the operation, but it reattached. We hadn't realised. So, by then we'd given up on breastfeeding and moved on. But as they grow older, there are other issues that can come from the back of that. Happily, nothing dramatic, but we got it much more right the second time, and I still had to fight tooth and nail. And I think that is in itself is tiring as well. Is all the fights that you have to have with people to get what's best for your children or yourself. It's like,
Right. And especially when you're a new parent and you don't even know that what you're fighting for is worthwhile
yeah.
because you don't know
And you're
if
being
it's a
told,
big
well,
thing.
you're just a first-time parent, or you're just an anxious first-time parent. That really winds me
No.
up, because those people need help. You shouldn't be dismissing
Right.
people and belittling them because they're first-time parents. It's really frustrating for me.
And in those situations, like I feel like also moms that were planning on breastfeeding So they had a plan in their head, and then something like that happens and they're not able to breastfeed, then they feel shame about it or and
Guilt. Yeah.
basically. And I tell my clients, it's okay to have a plan, but it's okay to change your plan.
Mhm.
Because if something happens, we move forward, we find another solution, and it's okay. It's just a matter of if you can breastfeed, let's find the right formula because there are so many formulas in the market that are really bad for your child. And unfortunately, in the United States, most of them are. In Europe, they are actually very good. But let's find a good option for you. And that's it. Nothing really major happened here.
So talk to me then about sleep training, because I know from my own kind of research into things that it's got like tongue tie. It's got some controversial sides to it, and not everybody sees eye to eye around it. But what is sleep training? If somebody out there has never heard of it, what does it entail? What does it mean?
So there are different sleep training methods, and some include the chair method, the Ferber method, and they involve leaving basically your child in their crib until they learn how to self-soothe themselves and fall asleep. But what we've seen in research is your child basically learns that you're not coming when they cry for a long period of time. But based on the baby-led sleep approach that I follow, we teach your child that, yeah, you are coming and you're not going to leave your child to sleep for a long period of time in their crib. But there will be tears because as adults, when we don't get what we want, we cry. So as kids, I talk to parents about setting boundaries around sleep. If you want to co-sleep, great, I'll support you on that. But if you want to share a room or not share a room with your child, we'll work on that. And most important is that you get the sleep that you need, and so as your child. So we start from day one with the words that we use. We set routines, we set schedules. Nutrition plays a big role, so we choose the right formula. Or if you're breastfeeding, great. Just make sure that your child is not allergic to any of the food that you're eating. And at 6 months, we choose a lot of protein to make sure your child gets a lot of protein around bedtime. And we move from there, but we basically choose the right components of sleep and we teach them to your child.
So then, bearing in mind that when your clients generally come to you, they're at that point of, "Oh, I need somebody to just wave a magic wand and do something to help me." How do
Yeah.
they often find you? Is it through referrals and word of mouth? Is it the website? Is it a mixture?
A lot of word of mouth. I work with a lot of pediatricians, a lot of physical therapists that work with women postpartum. And, it's like when you choose your therapist, you have to speak to a few to see who you vibe with.
Mm.
So there are many sleep coaches out there, many follow different sleep training methods, and you need to speak to a few to see who you vibe with and whose approach is similar to your parenting style. And so that's when I onboard a client, I always start with a 15-minute complimentary sleep assessment call because I want to tell them about myself, my approach. I want to hear what they're dealing with, but I also want to manage expectation and say that the fact that you just contacted a sleep coach doesn't mean that your child will be sleeping through the night today. It takes time and effort on your side. And because sleep changes so much in the first 16 to 18 months, because at that point we transition to a one-app schedule, then you need to be able to change the sleep schedule every month. You need to understand what your child is going through so you can support them.
What's one thing that you would like to leave our audience with? If there's somebody out there today who's watching this and thinking, yeah, I should probably contact a sleep coach, what's one thing that you can tell them today that will make not an immediate impact, but it'll be one of the biggest changes they can make for their own sanity?
Well, first of all, make sure you have routines and schedules in place and just, educate yourself. I have even a package on my website that I sit with family, and it's called Ask Me Anything. And you get it in 1 hour session, and you ask me all the questions that you have and your doubts, and we just talk about it. Even if you don't want to hire me as a sleep coach, you just sit down with me and we talk about everything you want to talk about. It just comes down to education, and to get the education that you need to help you and your baby sleep.
I think that's fantastic. I can only imagine that, ironically, on the back of helping other people with their sleep problems, you sleep pretty well at night, knowing you've done a good thing too, right? I think that's
Yeah.
a
And
lovely
that's how
story.
I've been able to be pregnant for, 3 years. And that's why I can say I want more kids, because we sleep. My kids go to sleep at 7:15. They wake up at 7:30. And we have, we can have our own time. And I think that's the most important. I always tell my husband, we need to stay married at the end of this. And it's nice that we're good parents, but we have to make sure that our relationships is also supported.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, as I've said throughout the episode, it's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to need help. It's okay to be
Yeah.
tired. It's okay to feel like, you don't need to feel like you're a bad parent if you're regretting having a baby right now because you're not sleeping. Like, that's natural.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Because we went through all of that, right? Like, it's tough. It is mentally and physically one of the hardest things you will ever do in your life. And nothing, I don't care how much education you have about it, still nothing prepares you for that. Almost like the first 6
Right.
weeks are relatively easy, right? Like, the first 6 weeks aren't too bad. You kind of lulled into a false sense of security. Like,
Yeah.
I
All they
remember
do is sleeping.
running around the house going, right, well, when the health visitor comes, my house is going to be absolutely spotless because I'm the guy. I'm a great parent. My house is going to be spotless. She came back after a year and the house was a tip. I'm like, yeah, I don't care anymore. I sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
My son goes to bed, we go to bed. The housework gets done when he's awake, like, if it gets done.
Exactly.
It's brutal. What do you think is the future for parenting and sleep support? What would you like to see? We've got all this amazing technology that we've got now. What's next?
I actually think, AI is everywhere. But for some things, you really need the personal touch. And when parents come to me, basically like therapy, and I don't know if I ever would want to have a therapy with AI, with a machine, because I need someone that knows how to deal with something in real life. But I wish that sleep coaching was more common, that people wouldn't feel ashamed around asking help. And the fact that your child is not sleeping does not make you a bad parent.
I love it. And Shani, I'm going to make sure all your contact details are in the show links. So if anybody's watching this and you've got questions, you're curious, you want to know a little bit more, you'll be able to contact Shani in the details below. And I would absolutely encourage you to, if there's any doubt in your mind as to whether you need this sort of support, even if it's not, as you said, even if it's not you, if it's something else, reach out, be brave and ask those questions. Have that courage, because you will thank yourself down the line. Shani, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and it's nice to be able to feel like I've been a little small part of helping people in today's episode. Is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with before we close the episode down?
No, just encouraging everyone to contact me or anyone else that can help them, because sleep is not a privilege, it's a necessity.
I love that. I love that phrase. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Shani, and thank you everyone at home for watching along or listening, depending on where you are. And if you've enjoyed the episode, please do remember, jump on Spotify, jump on Apple, leave us a review. It means the world to us and it helps us get out to many more people. So thank you very much for your time. And I'll see you next week on Marketpulse for the Pioneers. Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to feature on a future show, or you've got some ideas for folks who would make a great guest, please drop us a line. Contact details are in the show notes and I'd love to hear from you. Your host today was me, Paul Banks, founder at Javelin Content Management.
Here at Javelin, we specialise in helping busy business owners just like you to repurpose video content, taking all the stress and tech problems away and turning your long form video into literally hundreds of pieces of content without breaking the bank. We describe it as getting ideas out of your head into video and out to your socials. If you want to launch your personal brand, become the vendor of choice for your audience, or maximise your sales revenue impact, we'd love to hear from you. Join us next Wednesday for the next episode, and don't forget to subscribe and give us a review. Our podcast is only possible with your continued support.